Hey, everybody. Welcome to Out on an Island episode 9.
Something. Yeah, 9 is good. We got a little thrown off because we did that impromptu SCOTUS recording and we threw that up as episode 6. So it kind of pushed our schedule back, but it was worth it to get it out. It's such a timely thing.
We do want to remind everybody that our episodes are a little backloaded because, you know, we have jobs and this isn't our only job. So we have to give ourselves time to do this.
Which that goes nicely into the song title. I mean, the lyric for this episode, which is "We all need time for our brains to breathe," and that's by Jello Biafra. The song is called "A Boring Day Is What I Need."
I feel that, Jello Biafra. I hear ya. How are you? How you doing this week?
I'm hanging in there. Like that was so. I don't know if I believed that. You know.
I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah, you know, when one semester ends, another begins. And so I'm just kind of dealing with like the end of the spring 2020 semester and all the fun that comes with, and still applying, still interviewing, started teaching at a new university and a new program for their summer program. And so it's been fun, but it's been a little bit of overlap. But yeah, and just really trying to practice self-care this week, like self-care outside of my routine, you know, where it's all scheduled and stuff, just like self-care. How about you? How are you doing? How's your week?
It's pretty good. I'm literally in like rich person limbo right now because I'm house sitting for a good friend of mine who has had many successes in his life. So I'm up on the west side of the Big Island in a wealthy community, and I'm taking care of dogs, which is always fun. One of them is my own dog, so you know. But anyway, yeah, it's been interesting though. I haven't been a painter for a while. I mean, like I've always like kind of been like a painter in like my own house and stuff, but like I haven't done like a job in a while, and I started doing that again this week, and I realized how much I fucking hate doing it.
Yeah, I feel like you haven't painted like for money since like before the pandemic. Is that right?
No, I've been like here and there, like this house that I'm staying in. This guy's actually one of my clients as well as my buddy. So like I do shit for him, but like he's my friend, you know, he pays me, but it's really casual, like kind of thing. This is like a job where I have to be there like on time and shit. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I'm traveling next month and I would like to not be broke. But on the upside, I also found out that I won a really big grant this past week.
Hey.
Yeah, I guess it was the biggest that my organization's ever received in the past 10 years.
Look at you, like winning at your job.
Yeah, so that feels pretty good, especially since a lot of times I just want to bang my head against a wall. But yeah, it's been good. I'm definitely like in a different scenery right now. So that's kind of exciting to break life's monotony.
Yeah, it looks very bright and sunshiny. How's the weather on the west side?
It's an extreme drought. So it's too bright and too shiny, if anything.
Nice.
How's the weather on the east side?
We've actually had like sun and blue skies where we live, and the ground is drier. Like it's still like, you know, it's muddy, but it's not like I'm gonna step in it. And like 2 weeks ago, I stepped in, like I just took a step and just like my whole foot was covered in disgusting mud. And I had like my cat, because I walk my cats. That's one of the cool self-care things, but it's like routine. So I don't know, but I take them out on a leash and harness, and I don't know, we like frolic around, and Ronald was walking back upstairs and I wasn't watching where I was going. And I just fucking covered in mud. And so I had to wipe the bottom of my foot on my pants so I could go to the bathroom and wash it off. Like, oh God, it was awful. It's nice to see sun.
Yeah, we should definitely point out that on this island, the big island of Hawaii sustains like 12 out of 14 climates or something like that. Some numbers, I don't know. But we have almost all of the climates on the planet Earth on just this one island. So what we're talking about here is how dramatic like the west side is from the east side. Like the west side is literally a dry desert and the east side is literally the rainforest, like some Amazon shit rainforest. So
yeah.
That's
we have all but extreme Arctic, I think, and extreme
I think
desert.
It's tundra. Yeah, tundra and sand dunes, I think, are like the little microclimates we're missing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's May as we're recording, and we had snow on Mauna Kea last week, which I don't know how common that is. Like, I've lived here for almost 20 years, and I don't necessarily think I can recall snowfall on the mountain in May.
I've seen it before, but I can tell you it's getting more common because the world's fucking boiling, and the weather patterns are all crazy. But yeah, let's talk about current events. Speaking of which, holy shit.
I don't even know where to start. That's what I was gonna say. Like, Red Hill is back in the news. Apparently, like the Navy knew that there was the tanks were faulty or something. There's the Senate voted on whether to pass the bill or not to protect abortion. And the Senate, I guess it was just a symbolic vote that the Senate did. I didn't understand that it was just a symbolic vote that the Senate did about abortion, where they held this vote to protect it or whatever. And, it did not pass. It was 51-49. That was really disheartening. There's other news. I can't think of it right now. What about you? What kind of news is coming up for you?
I think COVID coming back up is a little frustrating for everybody involved. I don't think that it's going to come back to the scale that we've seen it just because vaccines are a thing. I did just read an article that said that it's just made its way into North Korea for the first time, and they don't have any vaccines because they're North Korea. So I guess everybody do with that news what you will, because he's such a tyrant. You're kind of like, oh, I hope Kim Jong-un gets it and just dies. But then, everybody else definitely isn't healthy in that country, nutritionally and stuff. So that's pretty fucking unfortunate.
Yeah, academically, actually talking about that, I just heard about some researchers in South Korea that are going through the trash that washes up on beaches to learn how nutrition is in North Korea. And it's not great. They're running out of sugar or something. So I thought that was a really interesting study. And then something else that's big in my academic scope that is actual literal news is Elon Musk and this whole Twitter thing, and that he so he said that he would let Donald Trump back in. I read this thing. It was just a meme, and someone was like, oh yeah, Elon Musk is buying Twitter so that when there's food shortages, we can't share information about it. And I was like, I kind of appreciate that from a deep state perspective, but I don't know the validity of it. But now I think maybe I'm buying into it a little more. So Elon Musk just criticized a pitch. Oh, you know what? Never mind. I think it might be a good thing. Elon Musk just criticized a pitch by a disinformation czar to allow verified Twitter accounts to edit each other's tweets. So right now, people can't edit other people's tweets, which is a really good thing. And on some other sites, when you post information, you're not allowed to even edit your own original post for the sake of integrity and to understand the conversation that happens in the comments section. And it really is just an honor code thing. And or you can view edit history and stuff. But the Disinformation Governance Board, the head of the Biden administration's new Disinformation Governance Board, pitched the idea of allowing verified accounts to edit Twitter and add context to other people's tweets since Elon Musk's bid was accepted. And they're suggesting that it will function like Wikipedia, so like verified users. This creates such an information disparity because like who then is verified, right? You can only qualify to get verified if you meet certain like requirements. It's not like every old person, any old person, any person, no matter your age, can become verified on Twitter. And then, so it would work like Wikipedia, where only the verified people can add context, edit people's information, provide additional information. And so this will like skew how we currently receive information in like this decentralized like world that we live in. It used to be that information just came from different media sources, so it went really one way, like it was centralized. So information came from one place and just went out. It was just disseminated. Now we have this two-way flow of information where people can create information, comment on information from centralized structures, and share and disseminate amongst themselves. So if only verified, think about who is verified on Twitter, right? It's like celebrities. Like,
yeah, totally. Fuck.
I don't want a celebrity editing my tweet, you know, like I think that's a terrible idea. I could see if verification meant something different. Like for Wikipedia, any person can apply to like join the Wikipedia community and edit. And then there's also like regulations on the back end, like the community has a whole set of like rules and guidelines to like govern themselves. So there's a system of checks and balances in place from a community regulation like standpoint. I don't think Twitter is going to have that.
That really goes into our topic today. You know what I mean? Like, just the word information at this point is like horrifying. What a terrifying fucking word, right? It's like, whose information is it? And even like just the amount of like information that I need in my daily life makes it terrifying because of my job and stuff, and like how it's the most accessible thing in the world, and then sometimes entirely inaccessible when you need it. And it's just like this big looming fucking giant in everybody's lives, I feel like. So yeah, I guess first and foremost, you know, like it says in the tagline for our podcast that we discuss mental health, and we do regularly try to squeeze that into what we're talking about. But today is the day we are talking about mental health and everything that implies. You want to get started there? To put you on the spot?
Sure. So I, talk very openly about how I go see a therapist. I started seeing a therapist in 2014 as a part of couples counseling. 2015 as a part of couples counseling. We were in a bad place and our therapist really helped us get to a good place. And then I started individual therapy after I started group therapy. I'm no longer in group therapy. Our group disbanded, but I see the value in joining groups for other things and stuff. I highly advocate for group therapy, group learning, group whatever. The point of me saying all that is I think it's every 6 months she has us do this mental health check-in, right? So it looks for specifically to assess anxiety and depression and everything from circle drive to eating habits to sleeping. And it sounds very overwhelming, but one has 50 questions and they're just circle check mark, and the other one has 20. It doesn't really take a whole lot of time. It really is a marker of where you are in a moment of time, right? So she can show me all of these evaluations. And there was one, you have to pick on a scale how happy you feel or something. And I was I wrote in there, I was I'm not participating. This scale is arbitrary. And it was after I've done this so many times. And I was just in a place. And so she showed it to me and she was so tell me again how you're feeling about this or about life, because it's just mental health is so important to like our being successful, I feel like, as people, like, and our ability to function. And I feel like it's something that isn't really, at least when I was growing up, like it wasn't really valued in the punk rock community, but it's also like been an excuse for like a lot of things, like not an excuse, but like, oh, they're just troubled. Oh, those punk kids, you know, like,
Yeah, sure.
like people sing about coming from broken homes, but nobody does anything to really like repair what that broken home did, you know?
Yeah, it brings to mind like the weird girl from the Breakfast Club, you know, where it's like,
Ali Sheedy.
yeah. Well, like her whole character was really like, she probably had some mental health issues, but instead they were like, put some makeup on her. You know, like now she's dating the jock and she's just fine. We probably should have talked more in depth about Ali Sheedy's character. But, you know, yeah, that's really interesting. To talk about therapy for a second, I do want to call out the fact that like therapy is immensely useful. And it's like, I like to look at therapy going to the gym, you know, where it's like some people love it and working in that environment is really, really helpful for them. And then some people do not love that platform at all, or I guess that resource at all, I should say. Platform was the wrong word. But yeah, you know, and I'm one of those people that does not love that resource at all. The intimacy of the situation, the like, whether or not like I physically have to be in the room with them or even like see their face. The last time that I participated in therapy, I was going through like an interesting situation with my partner. And really, I wanted him to see a therapist, but I like felt like if I made him do it, then I should do it too, or else I'm a hypocrite or something. So I
like way to bring up like punk rock ideals. Like, don't be a hypocrite.
I don't know. I just don't like to be an asshole. But like so anyway, yeah, I feel like, you know, I got involved with BetterHelp, I think it was, you know, one of those online platforms. And I opted to do telephone calls because, like I said, the whole intimacy of the situation is not something I particularly care for. And I still hated that. And I think that sometimes maybe people just like to work out problems on their own. It doesn't mean that you always can, but there's nothing wrong in feeling like you want to try.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's tons of resources too for people who just want to try on their own, whatever the problem is or whatever they want to learn about. Like you can easily learn about attachment theory through a podcast or by reading books about attachment theory as you can by going to a therapist, you know, like there's tons of resources.
Yeah, I don't think everybody benefits from like back and forth conversation like that. I know for me personally, it just makes me feel stressed out to feel like I have to perform in a conversation that is completely, essentially one-sided because like all the stake in that conversation like only benefits me. It does not benefit like my therapist except for like a paycheck, you know? So like, the stakes are a little different.
Yeah, the performative aspect like does go away after a while. So we tried a new modality because there's tons of different modalities. We tried EMDR, which is eye movement. It's like rapid eye movement tracking or something. And so there's a whole bunch of different modalities to engage. And I think maybe like the first 3 times I did it, I was like, I feel like I'm performing. Like, I feel like I'm just looking for what you want. And then like one day it just kind of clicked. And I had a really kind of shitty breakdown. I mean, like I was so broken down from that interaction. I cried for like an hour and a half. I was like, I just can't stop crying. Like Shaggy was like, oh, I used his name, the Mister. He was there. We did it as a way to like help see us as people because that was like really hard for us for a while. So we would do EMDR in front of each other and it's really vulnerable and like super intimate. Like he was like, are you okay? Like, what can I don't know. It just really like It was about abuse. It was an EMDR session, and I really went to this place of like abuse and trauma, and it was just crazy, like that kind of reaction. And then after that, like I thought, so there's also like this thing called a vulnerability hangover, where after you let people see you like so exposed, you get all like clammy, like gel up,
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't really feel that. And that was really nice. I didn't feel shame. I thought I would feel shame, like, because who would cry like that, but I did, and it's fine. It's whatever.
A lot of people, like when they have cathartic experiences like that, they surprise themselves with like their emotions. I have a friend who went to like one of those fucking lantern festivals where like, I don't know, they're essentially like a fucking fire hazard probably, but that's fine. I'm sure they're very cathartic and very pretty. But yeah, I guess like the whole point of that was to like write down your shit and then, let it go into the sky. And yeah, she said she cried her ass off, and she's definitely not a crier. I've known her in my entire life, so it's like, I think like those moments of catharsis and vulnerability are just like, they're really healthy to have. I don't have them very often. I feel like my method or like my methodology, like for dealing with emotions, is to laugh about things. I'm really sarcastic and probably like what a lot of people would describe as like overtly blunt or probably kind of negative. I've been described as the little rain cloud before.
What?
Yeah.
I don't see you that way at all.
Oh, that's good. Maybe I'm getting better. But yeah, so like, it's really, I think this is probably a good time to bring up the fact that, we should talk about ourselves and maybe like our own little personal journey that we're both on right now. Alicia and I are both seeking adult assessment for autism.
I was like, what are you going to say? I was like terrified for a minute. I was like, well, I don't know what this is. Okay, yes, we are.
Do you want to talk about the organization that you got involved with?
GRASP is the acronym, and they do assessment for women and people who identify as non-binary and genderqueer, because autism presents differently than it does in men, which is what men and boys, which is who used to be like the test subjects for anything related to autism. So it's GRASP.org, and it stands for Global and Regional Autism Spectrum Partnership. And awesome. So they do assessments. Mine takes place in June 13th is my first one, and it'll be 4 sessions over 2 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you mentioned they had quite a wait list though, huh?
Yeah, when I first signed up, one of our friends went through it, and I signed up shortly after, maybe less than 6 months. But for her, the wait was maybe like 2 months. By the time I signed up, the wait list was 2.5 years. And so my original appointment was for 2023, but it got pushed all the way up to this year, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. When I looked into it, it was also like 2 years out, and that was not enough for me to take action on.
That makes sense. So what did you decide to do to I don't know, do assessment?
As of right now, I'm not making any like proactive moves towards that. I should. It was my intention to, and I should, because it will like drastically help me in my professional life. Before I guess I get into that, I should explain why I'm seeking assessment at all. I mean, I feel like if you've ever looked into like, symptoms or flags for being on the spectrum and like high functioning, like Asperger's, you see there's a wide list of things, behaviors that people exhibit. I check maybe 8 out of 10 of those behaviors. I do want to mention though that, it doesn't mean that I don't have friends. It doesn't mean that I like am incapable of like social like interaction, or that like I'm not particularly good at social interaction. They call that compensatory behavior. It's more like just the way that I have like an inability to like relate to people and their emotions. And most of the time, like other people's like vulnerabilities just kind of irritate me. That sounds terrible. It's true though. You know, just other things like I had like certain behaviors from like when I was a child. I pick at my ears sometimes until they're like almost bleeding and I just like can't stop doing it. Or, you know, just like little compulsive things like counting for no reason in my head. Like I'll be like trying to fall asleep and ironically that does not help me fall asleep. Instead, I just get mad at myself for counting. So, you know, just little things like that. But the reason that I want to seek assessment is because in my professional life, I have the
pleasure.
Yeah.
The
I was going to say reputation for maybe being a little too blunt or a little too cutthroat. And because I work with organizations who are like trying to initiate positive change, that can be not the best tactic sometimes, but like I don't really know how to like gauge when I'm being out of line. And so I just would like to know if this is something that is just like me that I can work on, or if it's something that like I actually don't have control over. Yeah, I mean, like as I get older, you know, it becomes more valuable to be kind to people. So that's where I'm at with it. How about you?
Well, my big things are tone and emotion, and like, I don't understand them. So that was like a big point of conflict. So that's one reason why I mean, like, it's a persistent problem. It's something that will never change, but I can always still work on it and try. And at least like all interactions should be like formulaic, right? If you do X, then Y is the thing. But it turns out that if you do X, but you say it a different way, it might have a different reaction or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand like those nuances. And that was like a really big point of contention. So like the Mister and I, we created like a common language for emotion. Like, oh, when he says my tone for emotion and tone. So when he says like my tone is sharp, what he means is it sounds like this. And when he says he's feeling agitated, this is what it means. And like same with me, like, oh, this is what I mean when I say that. It really kind of came to like a point where because I didn't even understand the problem for a long time. I was like, this is so stupid. Like, I just said what I said and my tone shouldn't matter, because tone shaming is real also.
Yeah.
So I was on the phone with a customer service person, and it was very loud on their end. It wasn't loud on our end. And so I guess I was like yelling, but it was because I wanted the person to like hear me, and like I wanted to hear me over whatever was going on in the background. And the customer service person wound up hanging up on me, and I thought everything was going fine. And so the Mister was like, so that didn't go very well. And I was like, I don't know. I think we just got disconnected. And he was like, really? Because you were yelling at them. And I was like, I was not yelling. Like, but it wasn't like just denial. Like it was like that I literally couldn't hear the volume of my voice because I was hearing their background noise. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Social interactions sometimes are weird. I can socialize. I have people I'm very comfortable socializing with. And then being in a performative profession makes socialization for that part of my job like pretty easy. And then I have people that like I feel like I can be real with at work, and like they will support me. But I do want to just understand, like, if this is a thing, if I do have autism, you know, that will just help me better be able to understand my limitations and like the things that I can ask for, because like I'm on the job market and it says like, oh, do you need accommodations? And I'm like, well, probably, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah, like, yeah, sure.
I do know that getting the questions in advance is really helpful, because then I can plan out what I want to say. But yeah, just understanding how I interact with the work, and like how interactions from my childhood and my past could have gone differently or something. I don't know, because like I have some weird thing. I'm pretty confident after talking with our friend and stuff that I'm probably on the spectrum, because like for reasons we already said. Mm-hmm. But like, I also, I just want to know, is it or is it not? And if it's not, like, what then are my limitations to like understanding these things that just literally don't make sense?
Yeah, totally. I feel that it's that feeling of just like complete, like, I just don't know how to explain this. Like trying to explain my lack of emotions really only conjures anger, because it's like, I can't fucking explain to you like why I don't care about this. I understand that you care about this, and so like arguments with my partner oftentimes just end with me being like, just shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, we have the ability to talk things out, but I definitely hit a point, like a solid point where like I can't do it anymore. Like my brain goes into like shutdown mode and it's just not even like I have no desire to argue with people or like express emotion that way. You know what I mean? Which is funny because it feels like most of the world does. Like that's like what reality TV is and shit, right? So like yeah, I don't express my emotions in a typical way for sure. And, like I do want to talk about a little bit. So like my experience with mental health is really interesting. When I was a kid, and another reason why like I want to seek assessment as an adult, because when I was a kid growing up in the public school system in Hawaii, I was sent to every goddamn shrink and psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, fucking in school, like counselors, you know what I mean? Because like there just had to be something wrong with me. Like I wasn't down to like play the game. I don't know what fucking game everybody was playing. Like I thought my teachers were all fucking stupid, you know what I mean? Like I still do. Like a lot of my friends are teachers now. You know what I mean? I understand like exactly who the, Hawaii public school teachers are as like human beings now and not just like as authoritarian figures. But, I had a really hard time with that. So like as a kid, like I got into punk rock really young. And like when I found punk rock, it was everything. It was fucking everything. And I just wanted to do that, and in Hawaii, that was not chill by anybody's standards, especially like, scared the shit out of my parents. It scared the shit out of my school. And anyway, so they put me through the ringer though. I saw so many different people, different professionals, I should say. And they told me I had 100 different things wrong with me. Everyone had a diagnosis. It was ADD, it was ADHD, it was anger problems. It was like all of these things. And like, I literally had one teacher, I remember in a meeting between like my guidance counselor and my principal and like all my teachers and shit and my parents that were like discussing me, which was also a weird situation. It was like a weird, very like uncomfortable situation to put a child in, I feel like. Anyway, the point is one of my teachers was like, literally was like, she's playing all of you. Like she's just smarter than all of you. And she realized like that she doesn't have to do work this way and stuff. And I was like, ooh, kind of, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, because at a certain point, like there were so many people telling me there was something wrong with me. It was like, fine, if there's something wrong with me, then like, let's fucking do that, like, let's just be that person and like get special treatment for it or whatever. I never believed there was anything wrong with me in like not in like a clinical sense, like everyone was trying to make it, I think my mental health was pretty fine. I think I was just maybe a little strange for Hawaii. But so anyway, going back to therapy and like my negative connotation for therapy, like my own personal life, like I hate therapy for that reason. That like intimate setting was never comfortable. And like, especially like after it was like forced on me, it will never be again.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wish I could have started therapy earlier because like shit was fucked up. And I was also very smart. I knew shit was fucked up. Which is never good as a kid, right? And so I actually didn't start therapy till I moved to Vegas. Like it was a condition to me moving to Vegas with my mom. Like I was in my dad was incredibly abusive and he didn't know any better and, whatever and stuff. So I always wanted to go to therapy like in school and stuff because I always knew stuff was wrong. But by the time I finally did go, as a condition for me moving in with my mom, I had to go to therapy, but I was already so fucked up from living in this traumatic environment for like 3 years alone with my dad that like I could not function. So like I would think I was in therapy for like a year and a half when I was 11 to 12. Maybe I went a little longer. And then like we stopped because I wasn't making progress. And then by that time I had friends. So I was like hanging out with my punk rock friends because I made punk rock friends. And then when I was 16, I wanted to go back to therapy because I was like, hey, maybe there is something to this. So it was a choice then. That was like a crazy time. And then our insurance canceled like the person that I was seeing, which was super problematic. I don't go through insurance for therapy now because I just want it to be a resource that no one can take away because, you know, working on yourself is work that's never ending. I really admire people who can just go to therapy for like one thing and then be like, cool, I'm done. And it's like, oh, you must not be like you must not be fucked up. That's awesome. How do you function in life?
Point out that everybody's fucked up in some way or another.
I don't know. I was talking with someone, I don't know who it was, and it was like, maybe it was the mister, and it was just like, do you know that there are people that are like totally fine? Like,
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if people are totally fine or if they just have like incredible coping skills that like other people just haven't like unlocked. You know what I mean? Because like, how could, like, in this day and age, like, especially in this fucking world, like, how could you be totally fine? That doesn't make any fucking sense. You shouldn't be. You're selfish if you are. Stop it. Stop being fine.
Okay. So I am curious about, like, so what kinds of things did you do for self-care, you know, when you were growing up? And, like, how many of those things do you still do, like, today?
That's a really good question. I'm a creature of habit. Once I like find something that I really like it. My earliest form of self-care was probably journaling. I've always been super into writing. It's just kind of always something that I like to do. And I mean, I used to journal like probably every fucking day. And then once I found music, like once like music became like the focal point of like my existence, really, like journaling turned into like writing lyric. And then like, you know, once I learned how to play the guitar, that was like another really big thing that I was doing all the time. That, cause like I like to do things that like when I'm doing that thing, I don't have to think about anything else. Like there's no room for other things. So that was like how I started young. I read a lot as like a really young child, especially when like tensions were high or like emotions were high. Like I grew up, I have two older sisters and they've had less than savory experiences to, you know, with each other growing up. And so I was never a very confrontational being, I guess, not until I was older, at least. So yeah, I like to read. I was kind of a bookworm. But yeah, anyway, yeah, once music became a thing, like lyrics and stuff were like a big thing. That kind of faded away. I mean, I still play music and stuff, but in terms of like self-care, now I think it's probably more just like working out and like going hiking and stuff, you know? But I still do all of those things. I don't really read for peace of mind anymore, just because it seems like work, because I read a lot for work, you know, but pretty much everything else. Yeah. What do you do? What's your self-care from when you were a little baby, Alicia?
Well, I didn't really have any, I feel like, I mean, nothing really. I did dance. I danced like my whole life. I danced all the way until I moved to Hawaii. And then even after I moved to Hawaii, I taught mechanics workshops. So it's stuff that focused on like balance, jumps, and turns. So that was always really fun. But it was what I did. I wouldn't consider it self-care. When I was in high school, I used to make art projects like collages. I always loved making collages, and I would because I'm a girl, right? So I would get makeup, but I don't wear makeup. I still don't really wear makeup. So I would make collages, or I would make art pieces with my makeup. And I also was a writer. I didn't start journaling though until like later. I was like 22 when I started journaling because it always felt weird. Because that was one of the things they tried to introduce to therapy. And like they were like, you need to journal every day. And so I would just on the way to therapy, like make up at 11 years old, like every day. Okay, I did this day. I did this day. And then I would be like, Mom, do you remember what I did on Thursday? And she'd be like, are you just journaling now? Like, yeah, it always felt weird. And then like, cause it's like, so performance again, like how is that not performative in writing? But stories, I could always write stories. I did a lot of story writing, short stories. And I have a novella that is not published. I'm a published haikuist. So
that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, you endlessly surprise me.
I know. That's funny. And yeah, and then I've tried, so I still collage actually. I did one for therapy this week. You can't see it because it's all blurred out, but it was weird because I usually do like, okay, what do I want? What does success look like, or like whatever these big questions are, but it always implies that there's something lacking in me. Mm-hmm. And so this most recent collage that I did was just about I am enough, like, and so what images really resonated with like that sentiment instead of being like, well, what do I want enough to look like? Sure. What do I want self-love to be? Like just being like, okay, what actually is here? And then I tried knitting when I had my hysterectomy, and that was fun, but I don't keep that up. And my guitar is out, and I may pick it up now that grading is done. I always played music too. I played the cello and the flute. I have a bass, and I have several very nice guitars.
We should mention that both of our partners are guitar nerds, so there's a lot of guitars in our lives. I forgot to mention this about journaling, but so the day that I stopped journaling, the day journaling died.
Oh, I'm ready. I have space.
Yeah, I was probably maybe like 13 or so, and I was like really into writing lyrics at that point, and my parents were really mad that I was like a punk rock kid at that point. And one of my older sisters, I don't know, like, she was like being goody two shoesy or like what her deal was, but she like took my journals / lyric books, and she gave them to my parents. And I went home, or like when I got home, like they were back in my room, but like all the pages had been like torn out, and like they like scribbled, I don't know, like religious things on the pages and shit. And like I was so humiliated by the whole experience, oddly enough, more than anything, that like I just like was like, I'm never gonna write anything about myself ever again. Like, and then ever since then, like even like I write songs and stuff, that's kind of easier, but I don't ever let people see them until like I'm done writing them. But like when I'm writing now, like I can't journal anymore because it feels self-indulgent. And I have like a really weird issue with feeling like self-indulgent like that. Like I feel like that about social media the same way. Like I don't take like fucking a whole lot of selfies or anything on my social media because it feels really self-indulgent, So yeah, that was the day journaling died for me though. And it has never rearisen, and it never will. I am done journaling for the rest of my life.
That is a sad story, and I'm so sorry. Like, I just want to hug you.
I don't know. I mean, that's probably some weird mental health thing for all you mental health professionals out there. Explain that one to me. But
I
yeah.
definitely.
You're okay, you're gonna
I
cry. I'm okay.
I feel like so like one thing that's common with women with autism, I'm not sure about men, is absolutes. And so like that definitely is kind of like an absolute. Like it's like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe that's that. Just you invited speculation. So that's my non-professional armchair speculation. Um Oh, I also make scrapbooks. I love scrapbooks. I love telling a story. I love putting pictures. I have like a whole motivational quotes one from when I was like 20 and like the world is going to be different and like and I used to make things for my punk rock friends for Christmas for like holidays and stuff. So like I had some friends that were really into this band Cub. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're like an all
I'm
women
not.
kind of like folksy punk band. They have a song called My Chinchilla that's like really it's cute. It's so cute. And so I bought these things. I made these little teddy bears and I made these jean jackets. Well, I bought the jean jackets and I like painted on them, you know, their like band name and their name. And I like gave them these little because they're cubs and they liked cubs. And then I made a group of friends and we were the ghetto girls and yeah, we I don't even know how that started, but we had and so we called the boys in our group like the Cabana Boys, and I made these like bowling sweatshirts. I used to do a lot of painting. I don't know where that went, and so I had like I painted like a because we would go bowl and we would be really bad at it. So they had like they had like a bowling ball and bowling pins, and they said like ghetto girls, and we had pagers, right? So our pager number was on the front and our like nickname was on the back, and I hand painted them.
That's really adorable. The innocence of youth, especially youth before like the internet was everything.
Yeah.
There was something I was just thinking about bringing up. Oh, I also want to bring up while we're talking about these little funny traits that we have. Alicia and I both have a really immense hatred for the sound of chewing. And I don't know if anyone else out there has that, but dude, just, you know, like shut the fuck up while you're chewing. People making mouth sounds is the grossest fucking thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was telling you, so sometimes I do exposure therapy on like things that make me really uncomfortable or that I don't like because it helps me understand like people better. It doesn't, but it's something, I mean, I try, right? So I started chewing loudly to compensate for people in my life that chew loudly. And now I bother myself when I chew. Like, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, why are you chewing so loud? What is that slurping? Like, what are you doing?
That's funny. Yeah, I can't like make myself, I mean, I'm sure I could if I actually tried. There's just like no part of me that actually wants to try like exposure therapy like that. Like my partner is definitely the first person to be like, oh, you don't like cilantro? You know, if you crush it up and get all the acids out of it, that it doesn't taste like that anymore. And I'm like, why the fuck would I even try that? I just don't like it, you know? Like, or like when my particular like evil is, so we live in Hawaii. A lot of people wear rubber slippers here. I'm pretty much fucking everybody. And so like the sound of a rubber slipper dragging on like a shitty tile, like supermarket floor or like a cement floor or like is the grossest fucking sound. And people just like walk so lazily that they don't pick their little feet up. And then it's just this disgusting noise the whole fucking time. And like, it makes me so like physically nauseous to hear the sound, and it makes me so angry to hear the sound that like I'll literally just like bolt the fuck out of Home Depot, like just leave the aisle. You know what I mean? Like exposure therapy is like not a thing for me. I'm a solid fuck no kind of guy.
It worked for me with toilet paper because like I would be like, this is not a self-care thing. Maybe it is, I don't know. But like, you know, when people rip the toilet paper and it's not like the perfect perforation, Like there are lines there. Why don't you rip it on the line? It was just my mom died. And so I was like trying to understand why I found her like so offensive. Like, I love my mom 100%. I like love her, but there were some things that I'm like, why did you do this? So I would try like, so I just kept tearing the toilet paper roll like in all kinds of weird ways. And it kind of helped because then when you go in public too, and like nobody does that. And then there's like toilet paper, like women are disgusting. Just men probably are more disgusting just because it's really hard for women to get pee on the floor in the bathroom. But like women are disgusting. And like that would be one thing where I would be like, how could you not, like there's literally a line, like, and I would just let that affect my day so much. So it was really more for my own peace of mind to not get so bothered by it, I think. So now at least I'm like, oh, look, it's just toilet paper. I do still take notice of where it's torn though. I do notice it. It just does not like affect my day.
That's good. Good job. Really conquered that mountain. Yeah, it's really interesting. In terms of self-care, with all of these things, like it is like what I think what we're talking about is like a really interesting segue into like self-care, because like there is like two kinds of ways to do self-care. Like you can learn, like take a thing that bothers you and learn how to grow from it or grow with it, I suppose. Or you can take my method and go, nope.
A healthy mix of both is good.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. Like, is it a grass is greener kind of situation for self-care? I could probably stand to be more tolerant of things that irritate me. I don't really know how I would go about doing that. I've set my life up so well to not deal with things that are irritating to me, I mean, other than like my partner, because he irritates the shit out of me. It's not a personal thing. Everybody irritates me at some point or another. We just spend the most time together. I don't know what like, I guess exposure therapy is one. Are there any other kinds of like methods of self-care that you can like think that you use to like grow from or like grow with?
I believe in boundaries, like talking about like setting your life up with things that like irritate you. I mean, like, I think the big thing, and we've come back to it a couple times, is just like, how do people treat you? And do they, when you express something, whether it's a value or, like a line or something, like, do they respect that you have set this for yourself? Mm-hmm. And if so, great. And if not, like you have established a boundary, it's up to you whether you cave on that or not. Sure. So, yeah. So like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm really big on boundaries, and it's something like saying no is harder, but setting a boundary and then gently ghosting someone who doesn't who doesn't respect that boundary is like my MO, because I also don't like confrontation, even though like people think I like confrontation. I don't mind a good verbal confrontation, but I'm not going to keep engaging with someone that clearly isn't listening, because that's just sure. Stupid,
Yeah, I often have to like tell my partner, like, when you're the only one talking, it's not a discussion anymore. Now you're just like lecturing people on why you're right. And like, yeah, I think like boundaries are really healthy. It's in like a staggering amount of people I'm learning, especially as I get older, and especially like as I watch my friends like get into like serious relationships or like get married or like, and then like watch those, maybe like 50% of those fucking fall apart. I think like one really interesting thing is like how much people don't establish boundaries, or how much they feel like establishing boundaries like is indicative of like a lack of them not trying for their relationship, I guess, like a lack of trying in their relationship if they like establish a boundary. And like it's really interesting because like people just let people treat them like shit. You know what I mean? And my mom always like told us when we were growing up, like people will do to you what you let them. Yeah, I think that carries a lot of weight. You know, people will do to you exactly what you let them do because people are opportunists by nature. One really big form of self-care, guys, is like doing critical thinking about what things, these like big established like ideas of things are, like love, right? Like love, you know, like it's really funny. I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, I think it was like Paul's first letter to the Corinthians or something. It's that bullshit
Love is
scripture you
patient,
hear.
love is kind.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
the mister changed it in our vows just to encapsulate, to say love is not patient, love is not kind, but the dude didn't read it. So, anyways.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's my point though. Like, that is such an unrealistic standard of like the person that you love because like often love is impatient and unkind and super fucking jealous, you know what I mean? And like I think it needs to be all of those things because that's like how you grow in like a relationship with people. Like if you can get past that, then like that's probably a good healthy thing to experience. And so like when, you know, people like put these big ideas on themselves, like we discussed success a couple weeks ago, you know, like what like somebody else's idea of like, or this like big vague amorphous idea of success is and how crippling that can be for people. Like stop defining, I think like that's a really big thing for self-care is like to stop defining your situation or like your like concept of things by like other people's like largely like vague concepts of like very important things in life, you know?
Yeah. Two things came up for me. One is love is a social construct. I mean, love, relationships, every education, whatever, it's all a social construct. And so that means that it can all be critically evaluated and changed to however it works best for you or whoever you're in relationships with. Like it doesn't have to be this one thing. And the second thing that came up for me was when you were talking about people that you've seen in relationships just cave or like have no boundaries. And it reminded me, I learned about this new kind of attachment theory. So there's usually we think of it's like avoidant. So people who like when people express their love, you like run away. You're like, what the fuck are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
and and then there's anxious where like people are like, why don't you love me? Why don't you love me? Why don't you love me? And then in those, there's also like subtypes of attachment. And so there's this attachment where you just keep trying to like prove yourself. I forget what it is. It's like a subset of, I think it's avoidant attachment, and we'll put it in the show notes, but it's where like you just keep being like, look, I'm worthy of love. Look at me showing up. Look at me doing all those things. And in many ways, like we change our behavior or we lower like our standards in order to be like, look at me, I'm worthy of your love. Like, which is so baffling. But I do it. I was so bad at that. Like, and the stories that we tell ourselves about like, oh, this person won't love me but like if this person loved you, they love you no matter what, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I feel like I experienced that being bullshit at a pretty young age. So in my like adult life, well, I never like really dated people. That's never been my thing on like a serious level, but like as a teenager, like I was like pretty in love with a dude and like he totally fucked me over. And like because I'm an absolute person, it was like that was all I needed was like this one time to like have this bad experience and be like, okay, no, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like, fuck this whole love situation. And so, you know, it's not that I don't experience love in my own ways, but it's definitely nothing pertaining to like people's idea of love. My like whole like marriage, like partnership situation is super unconventional and definitely not like romancy or flowery in any way, shape, or form. But I like it that way. I'm comfortable that way. But like love as a construct, I wanted to speak to that because have you ever heard of the 36 questions?
Is it the one where you can ask them 36 questions and by the end of it, you'll fall in love or something?
Yeah, exactly. It was a study that was done by psychologist Arthur Aaron. And I first heard about this on the New York Times podcast where they have like, it's called Modern Love. And they're just like reading articles from the Modern Love section of the New York Times. And they have like celebrities like narrate these columns. And it was like really, actually, if anybody wants to listen to it, it's episode 30, and it's my girl Jillian Jacobs from Community, hilarious, narrating it. But anyway, basically, like what they're talking about in this like column is that these two people tried these questions to fall in love, and like they actually worked, and like that was really adorable and stuff. But like the thing that kept them together afterward is the fact that they have done the work to like check in with each other on a year-to-year basis to assess like who they are at that time. You know what I mean? And like, because people change regularly, and like it is like probably the biggest act of love, like on like a conceptual level, I think, to like give people room to grow and then like want to talk to them about it, you know, instead of just worrying about like if they're going to change and leave you all the time. Because like, I mean, if they do, they do. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. We actually have a marriage contract that every year on our anniversary, we like revisit, and like it used to be not written down. And so like, and we always say, okay, well, we're going to give it a whole year together. We're going to stick it out. And there was times where it was like, you can't hold me in that. Like it was rough for a little while. And, you know, but every year on our anniversary, we revisit like our marriage contract. And I mean, at the end, we're just like, okay, and do you still want to be married like for another year? And so like, you know, fortunately, it's always been yes. And like after this one where he asked me to get re-engaged, and we did this whole big like shift in our marriage, I'm definitely more secure now, like than I was when he originally asked, when he re-asked, because I was like, oh, I'm totally like, how is this even real? Like, we're going to go through this like big, enormous change, and like, he can't really mean it. But like, now that we've undergone the change and life is life, like, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, he meant it. And we're not going anywhere. So
yeah, I guess like that's another form of self-care is like checking in, right? Like checking in with yourself first and foremost, but then checking in with the people around you that you value, because like if you have a false impression of somebody, that's not very healthy for you. Also, not that person either, probably. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like how like, you know, punk rock was self-care for me. I touched on earlier, you know, about how like music's always been like a really big thing for me in terms of self-care, just because it's like an escape kind of thing, you know. And I mean, there's like so many different artists that do that, that write songs about that cliche. Like Operation Ivy's like Sound System is like the first one that comes to mind, you know. That's definitely true. Like for a lot of kids though, you know, like who get involved in like punk rock or like really any counterculture kind of like scenes, like, is that a form of self-care? Is it, you know, or is it like self-medicating, or is it, you know, like, what is it? Is self-medicating self-care?
I don't know. I can't answer those questions because I'm not a doctor. But yeah, I don't know. So when I think of punk rock as self-care, for me, it's more like the scene. Well, I mean, it's the music too, right? Because the first thing that comes up for me is music becomes reality and nothing left inside is real. The lyrics and being able to like hear someone that like you've never met like sing something that you're feeling like, and then you get to scream it, you know. And like going to shows, like I'm very up energy kind of person. Like for drugs, definitely I like uppers and not downers. Like I'm like wee, you know. And so being in an environment where I could just jump around, you know, freely, and like it's like okay, and like go and bang into people and like push them and get pushed, and like I don't know, just all this crazy energy, like it just, that definitely did feel like self-care to me.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. Like I said, my big thing that I love to do more than anything is any activity that allows me to only concentrate on the one thing happening at the time and kind of silence all the other thoughts in my head. And like punk rock's always been that, you know. And like I know so many people that are like, well, how do you listen to it? It's just people screaming. It's so loud. It's, you know, there's no musical talent. I've heard that 1,000 times, which I totally disagree with. Anybody who feels like they have that opinion of punk rock, you should do more homework. But like,
They know more than 3 chords.
Yeah. And there's like lots of different kinds of punk rock also. So like just being enamored like with that whole moment, you know, at a show is so sick. And like, or even, I mean, playing music for sure, but like, I think experiencing like another, like a punk band is like a huge thing, you know, like I think there's so much catharsis in that. And like, I think you hear a lot of people talk about punk rock that way when you watch documentaries and like, you know, any interviews with anybody who like grew up in a punk rock scene. I think everybody kind of has this same idea of like, it's this like very cathartic, very like soothing place to be, you know, which is so ironic with like the negative connotations that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I mean, because you could even argue like expression, right? Like the freedom of expression is self-care.
Yes.
Because like you are freeing yourself from like caring about the judgment of other people. And like punk rock is, you know, if it's anything, it's not giving a shit about other people. Not other people like that, but like what they think, I guess is what I should say.
Yeah. The social perceptions, expectations, and standards for sure.
Yeah, totally. Which is like really nice. I think like a lot of kids maybe with like mental health issues or like at least like, I don't know, maybe heavy ones, I don't know, but like varying degrees of like mental health issues, I should say, like gravitate towards punk rock for that reason though, you know, like whether it be a place to be angry and it's accepted, or whether it be a place where like things are so loud that it drowns everything else out, or
that
like,
you have a sense of community and it's safe where nowhere else is safe.
Yeah, it's really nice that it provides a space where everybody's fucking weird, you know?
Yeah.
Which is like, I think other countercultures operate in like similar ways, but I don't think like to the extent of punk rock, because it's such a wide like net of like different people and like different like subgenres of like one thing. And I have friends that are like into all of it, you know? I think like the cool thing, like, I don't know, is punk rock the ultimate self-care if it just allows you to be and do whatever you want free of like judgment and like, you know, kind of.
It is for me, I think so.
Yeah. I guess I just like had that epiphany in my own little brain, which is very funny.
I feel bad about saying it though, because like then, you know, I also think about like the first subculture that came up for me was juggalos. Like they also are super accepting and stuff. And then, but metal, I feel like they try like, and I don't know, it's a stereotype. It's my own that you have to be more metal than, you know, like, I don't know, but maybe that's just because it's just not like my primary scene. Like,
yeah, like you're not super heavily involved.
Yeah. I always felt like I was like, I'm a punk rock kid in this metal scene. No one will know the difference, you know?
I mean, like the lines are so blurred now. It's funny because like when we were growing up, I feel like scenes were still really cliquey like that. And now because like the internet and like Spotify and like all of these different things, like I feel like kids' taste in music varies so much, you know, it's like such an eclectic collection of like music for a lot of kids these days. And that definitely like wasn't a thing when I was growing up, you know. It's like it was pretty much all punk rock. And then when I heard bluegrass, it was like this too. But
I want to echo your point. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go. What are you echoing?
that in punk rock ethos, right? And punk rock ideology is freedom of expression, and that is not like a foundational ethos or ideology of like other things. So I think, therefore, it might be the ultimate form of self-care because it's like embedded into the values of what it means to be punk rock.
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, for all the negativity, because like we recently did an episode where we like discussed like punk rock and pop culture and like, holy shit, the negative connotations for punk rock, you know, but like, you know, it's not everybody's experience with punk rock that's positive, but like, I know a lot of people have like really positive experiences like being a part of the subculture. when I think about like other subcultures, like when I think about things like hippies or like deadheads or like, you know, the fucking metalheads, I guess, rave kids, you know what I mean? Like they all kind of have like their own freak flags that they fly for like freedom of expression and stuff. But I just don't ever see like, I guess, participants of those scenes in such varying forms as I do punk rockers. You know what I mean? Like everything from like people who like dress and like look the part to like people that you would never expect to people who are fucking, you know, like playing bluegrass, like Appalachian bluegrass kind of like hillbilly punks to like, you know what I mean? Like there's all these different like varieties of punk rock that are really interesting, and I don't ever see that like generate outward from a scene, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like the coolest thing about punk rock is it kind of became like a one size fits all for like anybody who was doing anything kind of raw, fast, and alternative in like whatever scene they were in, you know. Like that's why there's so many varieties of punk, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you know any other style of music that has that much variety? I mean,
no, I think metalheads would argue because like they have all the chorus, right? And then off of the chorus, they have all the other stuff. So like
sure,
and then they can do like da 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 da. But I don't know if it's as varied.
Also, I would like to ask the question, would metal even exist without punk rock? Because I don't think it necessarily would. I think one came before the other.
I think that's a debate for another time. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, whatever.
Someone would be like, you can't kill the metal. Punk rock tried, but you can't kill the metal. And
yeah.
I don't know how anyways, yes.
But like in music history, like for real though, like I'm pretty sure like I would have to say that like, you know, the whole like idea, like attitude of punk rock, like started probably with like, I don't know, somewhere in like the rock and roll era, maybe like Johnny Cash kind of like outlaw music, you know, but then like it went into like Iggy and the Stooges in like the 60s. And like, I think that was like foundational for punk rock. So like what were metal's roots at that point? I think
Deep Purple, so progressive, I think is where they were in
that's
their,
fair.
Yeah.
Huh. This is a good discussion to have at another time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, whatever your brand of self-care is, it's really important to have one. And, you know, like wherever you are in your mental health, like don't ever feel ashamed about your mental health if you are struggling with it, or, you know, even if you feel like you don't have enough problems. I feel like that is a thing for some people too, is that they maybe feel like there's something wrong with them for not feeling like there's something wrong with them. And that's, you know, that's fine too.
Yeah. And your problems are valid, whatever they are, you know.
Yeah. I'd also
they are valid.
Really like to take this time to remind people that if and when you are involved with somebody who maybe needs help with their mental health, until they decide to seek it, you cannot force it upon them. Like, unless it's a clinical thing where they're harming themselves or others, like you cannot force somebody. It's like, imagine if somebody was overweight and you thought, you know, this is unhealthy and this is dangerous for them. Unless they come to you can't put them on a treadmill, you know, kind of thing. So it's like, it's the same thing with mental health. Like mental health is a mental exercise that has to be performed by a willing participant. And I just want to remind people that, you know, no matter how much you love somebody, you can't make somebody better. They have to want to do it themselves. And so the best like thing that you can do is hold space for them to talk when they need to, and make gentle suggestions for, you know, solutions to the problems that they introduce to you, not the problems that you notice about them that you're introducing to them.
And another great thing to do is use that as an opportunity to practice your own boundaries. Like, okay, what are your boundaries in those situations, right? Not just only that you can't force them to do things, but if you find that it is having a negative effect on you, right? Maybe you'll only spend a limited amount of time with them, like see them once a week instead of like every day, or,
Totally.
whatever. Use that as an opportunity to practice setting boundaries.
Yeah, I think like there's such a thing as like loving somebody to death, and like you can love them to death and you can love them so much that it's killing you also, and like that's not always the best route to go. Like if you can't control a situation, like clenching on tighter to try almost never, probably never ever solves the problem. So just a reminder to people that mental health is a personal journey for every person, and it should be left that way until solicited, you know what I mean, for like outside opinion. But you can't let somebody's mental health affect yours, and you can't affect somebody else's, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to leave it. Is there any bands that you want to, like, is there any bands that you're listening to right now that you want to talk about, or anybody mental health stuff?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Real quick, everybody, we want to start doing this. We are first and foremost a punk rock podcast, and we kind of both came to this realization that like, oh shit, we should like shout out some bands that we're listening to in case you guys want some new bands to listen to. So this week, my recommendation for a band is The Taxpayers, and they're super eclectic in style. They're from Portland, Oregon, and the album in particular that I listened to today, actually, in its entirety, which was really good, is called God Forgive These Bastards, Songs from the Forgotten Life of Henry Turner. And like, it's essentially, yeah, just like it plays it's a concept album about this man's life and like his struggle with like mental health and drug addiction. And it's brutal and it's insightful and it's all kinds of things. And like, yeah, I just highly recommend it if you guys are into like hearing a pretty musically talented band do like some pretty creative stuff. The Taxpayers, God Forgive These Bastards.
Nice. I'm going to shout out, I feel really bad about this. I feel like I shout them out all the time. So maybe I'll just pivot really hard. I'm gonna shout out Bad Cop, and their album The Ride is just so amazing. So Bad Cop is an all female like new school punk rock band, and they also have careers, like, so they do activism, and they have master's degrees, and like they also are touring musicians, and it's just amazing. So their album The Ride was like my favorite album of 2020, and then I think next time I'll shout out my favorite album of 2021.
Awesome. Yeah. And then I see you got an organization you want to shout out here.
Oh, Punk Rock and Paintbrushes. So they work with different people in the punk scene, whether it's musicians, skateboarders, artists, and they all they put on different gallery shows as fundraisers for different organizations and causes. And they also are touring, and they have like a coffee book.
I wish I had more information on this. We can probably put it in the show notes, but on the note of Punk Rock and Paintbrushes, they're actually working with a lady from Hawaii right now. I don't remember her name, but her Instagram is Illuminated Art Hawaii, and she's an incredible painter for anybody who wants to check that out. Like I said, we'll figure that out and put it in the show notes. But yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool that they're working with a local artist.
That is super cool.
Work with us, Punk Rock and Paintbrushes. We want to be your friends. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, cool. I guess have a good rest of your day, night, week, wherever you're at.
Yep. I was going to say, catch you on the flippity dippity. And then I thought about like, catch you on the Menjays.
Yeah. And now the episode's over. Okay, bye.